Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads. We're going to start Happy Birthday, Kirsten. Chapter 1, Tornado. Hit your rug harder, Anna called to Kirsten. Look, I can make more dust fly than you can. It makes me sneeze, Kirsten said. She liked smacking the rag carpets that Mama and Aunt Inger had draped over the line. She grinned as she slapped the dirt out of a small branch from the maple tree. Anna held her branch with both hands. Because she was only 8, the youngest of the girls, she had given the smallest rug. The tip of her nose was pink as a cherry blossom from the sun and the work. After the long winter, the clothes, the bedding, and the rugs were full of dirt and soot. But Kirsten and Anna laughed and chatted as they beat rugs. Elizabeth called hello as she brought the bed linens from the big house where Mama and Aunt Inger were doing the laundry. They were also glad it was warm enough to be outside. The Larsons' first winter in America had been bitterly cold, but at last the deep snows of Minnesota melted. Now, May Green, the farm Kirsten's family shared with Uncle Olaf and Aunt Inger. Papa Lars and Uncle Olaf were working the field so they could plant wheat and corn. As soon as the seed was in the ground, the men would raise a new barn. That would be wonderful, Kirsten thought. A big new barn and a bar raising party. There's so much work to be done. Kirsten sneezed again and stopped to wipe her nose on the corner of her apron. A strong wind off the prairie whipped her skirt around her legs and pulled Anna's braids straight back from her head. It fanned the flames under the streaming laundry kettle where Mama and Aunt Inger stirred the sheets. As Peter brought the cows to be milked, his cap blew off his head and stumbled across the barn lot. Mama scooped the calf as it rolled to her feet, then looked at the sky in alarm. Kirsten looked too. All day the sun had shone, but now the sky was getting dark as though night was coming early. Mama waved to her side. She put her wet, warm hand on Kirsten's shoulders. Those black clouds worry me, Mama said. Aunt Inger shaded her eyes to study the horizon. Another tornado might be coming, she said. Last spring a tornado ripped out the woodlock and almost took that old barn. We should go into the root cellar to be safe. Even as Aunt Inger spoke, the wind blew several shingles off the roof of the little barn. Get your brother and your cousins, Kirsten, Mama said. Hurry. The wind shoved Kirsten as she ran to the barn. Come quickly, she called to Elizabeth and Anna. There might be a tornado. The pine trees thrashed, the tall grass flattened, and the wind howled as black clouds sped up the farm. If a tornado touched down here, it could destroy the house and the cabin and the barn and everything in them. It could even carry away pieces of the new barn they hadn't even put up yet. Kirsten grabbed Peter's hand. Or tornado, we have to get underground to be safe. Come to the root cellar. No one had to be told twice to hide from a tornado. Peter picked up the gray cat, Missy, and ran after Kirsten. Mama was already at the back of the house, opening up the door to the root cellar. Anna and Elizabeth scrambled in like prairie dogs to a burrow. Aunt Inger came with a lantern and the family Bible in her arms. Right behind her ran Miss Winston, the school teacher who was staying with the Larsons. She had a quilt over her head and shoulders like a cloak. Peter skidded into the root cellar with Kirsten right behind him. Then Mama and Miss Winston crowded in, and Aunt Inger dragged the door shut behind her and bolted it tightly. Where are Lars and Papa and Uncle Olaf? Kirsten asked. They're helping at the Peterson farm today. Don't worry, the men will lie down in the ditch if they see a funnel coming, Aunt Inger said. Here, turn over a bark and sit down. She lit the lantern and sat by her feet. Everyone huddled together to shoulder in the little room dug out of the earth under the house. Last fall, the root cellar had been full of potatoes, turnips, carrots, beets, and apples. During the winter, families had eaten almost all the vegetables. Now there's only a few wrinkled apples left. Aunt Inger picked them up and hunted them around. These will have to be our lunch, she said. We can't go until the dangers pass. Aunt Inger held the family Bible in her lap. It was the most important thing the Larsons owned. Every night, Uncle Olaf or Papa would read from it. In the front of the Bible, the names and important days of everyone in the whole family was written. Kirsten liked to read her own birthday here. Kirsten Larson, born June 8, 1845, Rid, Sweden. In a month, she would be 10 years old. Kirsten was too nervous to eat the apple Aunt Inger had given to her. Outside, the wind roared, and how like the train this had brought to her family across the country to their new home. What would they do if the tornado blew their cabin away? And Mom was going to have a baby soon. Where would the baby be born if they didn't have a home? Kirsten pressed against Mama's side. Miss Winston pulled her quilt from her head and smoothed her hair. In Maine, we never ever had a tornado. No one will believe me when I write about these dangers. But she smiled to show them that a ship captain's daughter knew how to be brave. Anna touched the corner of Miss Winston's quilt. Couldn't you find your cloak? She asked. Anna was never too scared to be curious. I never thought about my cloak. I just knew I had to save my quilt, so I took it and ran. Miss Winston sat up straight-legged lady and soothed the quilt in her lap. Every time I look at my quilt, it's like getting a letter from home. You were right to have it, Aunt Inger said. It's quite beautiful. Kirsten had often thought about the brightly colored quilt on Miss Winston's bed. She never looked at it closely. Now she leaned forward to study it. It was white and covered with designs that looked like wreaths of flowers. Each design was made from small pieces of fabric. The whole quilt was sewn with tiny perfect stitches, the kind of stitches Mama was teaching Kirsten to make. It must have taken a long time to sew, Elizabeth said. She was 12, and her sewing was already like a grown woman's. Anna shuddered when the wind huffed at the door. Did you make your quilt, Miss Winston? She asked in a small voice. Oh no, shall I tell you how this quilt was made? Miss Winston said. Anna nudged Kirsten's foot with hers because Miss Winston never missed a chance to teach a lesson. Yes, please, Anna said. It did take a long time to sew, Miss Winston said proudly. My mother and my aunts and cousins and my sister made this quilt for me. They gave it to remember them by when I left home. She pointed to the flower designs to the quilt. The pink cloth in the center of the flowers from my sister's old apron. The cloth and this green leaf is from the dress of my mother's. The yellow cloth for the yellow flowers came from a dress I wore as a baby. It was hard for Kirsten to imagine Miss Winston as a baby, but she liked the quilt's lively colors. And it made her think of the wildflowers in the meadow. Everyone who helped make this quilt signed her name to it, Miss Winston said. It's a friendship quilt. Her eyes had a faraway look, as though she were gazing at her friends and family back in Maine, instead of the dirt walls of the damp root cellar. Do you think you could teach us how to quilt? Whenever Kirsten asked, whenever she admired something, she wanted to do it herself. Yes, could you? Miss Winston raised her eyebrows. Haven't I taught you sums and readings and reciting and penmanship? Of course I can teach you how to make a quilt. A big one like mine would be difficult, but you could each make a small square. I have some white muslin in my crown. I'll cut 3 pieces for the background. Anna nudged Kirsten's foot again as the girls looked at each other excitedly. But what can we use for making the designs? Kirsten asked. You'll only need small bits of cloth for that, Miss Winston said. Just scraps will do. We can use my worn out handkerchief, Anna said. And scraps from the rag bag, Elizabeth added. My apron can't be patched anymore. We can cut it up for scraps. Kirsten said. Mama put her hand on Kirsten's knee. You don't have time for fancy sewing, she said. Remember, I need all your help to make clothes for the baby. She patted her big belly to remind Kirsten that it wouldn't be long now until they needed baby things. Kirsten sighed. It was tiresome to hem shirts and diapers for the baby Mama was expecting. Why did a baby need so many diapers? Surely 3 or 4 would be enough. But quilting trains the hand and eye, Miss Winston said sternly, as though Mama were one of her pupils too. And a quilt is so practical. Mine is wonderfully warm. Mama looked doubtful. Quilting was something new to her. The Swedish women wove their blankets and bed covers on looms. Maybe Elizabeth and I can learn and teach too when you have time, Kirsten, Nana said. I bet you'll still be able to sew just before bedtime, Elizabeth said, and at school we can sew during recess. I know the other girls like to do it too. Sewing at recess, what a good idea, Miss Winston said. After you walk about and take deep breaths, I'm sure there'll be time for sewing. Where there's a will, there's a way. She wrapped her quilt around her shoulders again. The great cat jumped from Peter's lap and curled around Kirsten's ankles. Missy was going to have kittens soon. It didn't like to be fussed over now. But Kirsten felt comforted when she petted the cat, so she stroked Missy's soft forehead. I'll sew the baby thing so fast that I'll have some time, she told Elizabeth and Anna. It's decided then, Elizabeth said. We'll learn to make a quilt. Who knows what these girls will learn next, Aunt Inger said to Mama. Then she cocked her head. While they were talking, the wind had died down. I think it'd be safe to go out now, she said. Let's look. She lifted the heavy bolt. The small door swung open on the patch of sky. The patch of sky as blue as one of the pieces in Mrs. Winston's quilt. All the rugs and covers had blown off the line, and a few shingles had blown off the rooftops. Broken branches littered the barn lot, but both houses and the old barn stood safe in the clearing among the pines. Mama let out a long sigh, and as though she'd been holding breath. Thank God that this danger has passed by, she said. They crept out of the root cellar like bears out of a cave and into the fresh air. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.